All right, what's hoppin', DoD Park? Welcome to the DoD Park podcast, a podcast dedicated to the conservation and management of reptiles and amphibians on military lands. I'm your host, Ian Trefry. Join me and co-host Chris Petersen and Rob Lovich as we provide you with updates and information on DoD Park and highlight some of the great work that the DoD Natural Resource Program is doing in support of the military mission. Stay tuned and thanks for listening. This podcast was recorded at the Louisiana National Guard training site, Camp Minden, coming off of the DoD PARC second annual strategic planning meeting. I sit down with Chris Petersen and Dr. Rob Lovich of DoD PARC to discuss DoD PARC and what we were doing at the annual strategic planning meeting. Now, these two probably don't need much of an introduction, but for those of you who may not be familiar with them, Chris Petersen has been the DoD PARC National Representative for the past 10 years. He's the current co-chair for the Park Joint National Steering Committee. He works as the Senior Natural Resource Specialist for NAVFAC Atlantic with a background in herpetology. Chris's contributions to the conservation and management of reptiles and amphibians on military lands are undeniable, from over a dozen scientific publications on a variety of herpetofauna conservation topics to the proliferation of DoD PARC. Dr. Rob Lovich has been the DoD PARC National Technical Representative for the past 10 years. He's been the prior PARC California representative and prior Southwest PARC co-chair. Rob works as a Senior Natural Resource Specialist for NAVFAC Southwest with a PhD in herpetology. He's authored Lizards of the American Southwest and the Southwest Park Habitat Management Guidelines. Dr. Lovich also boasts well over a dozen scientific publications, and his contributions to DoD PARC and the conservation of reptiles and amphibians on military lands far exceeds the sports coat, DoD PARC t-shirt, and Vans footwear we so frequently see him wearing during his presentations. Now, before we hop into the episode, and for those of you listening that are not familiar with government agencies and the people who work in them, we love our acronyms, and you've probably heard a few already. And you're wondering what I'm talking about, but don't worry, I will include them all in the show notes along with links to all the relevant resources and information we provide during this episode. But a good one to start with would be DoD PARC, which stands for Department of Defense, Partners in Amphibian and Reptile Conservation. So without further ado, let's jump into this conversation on DoD PARC with Chris Petersen and Dr. Rob Lovich. All right, well, here we are.
Wow, we're live.
We've been live for a few minutes now.
We're doing it.
We're doing it. So.
High five, brother.
Erase that stuff I said about Rob earlier, please.
Yeah, I'll make sure that's edited out of his copy.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Well, we're at Camp Minden National Guard training facility. It's a 16,000 acre facility coming off of our second annual DoD PARC Strategic Planning Meeting. But before we get into any of that, I kind of just want to touch on DoD PARC in general. What is DoD PARC? What our mission is, and go from there. So, Chris, if you want to take the lead on that, and then we'll go over to Mr. Lovich.
That sounds good. Thank you, Ian. Yep. So DoD PARC is a network. It's a network of about 550 people who are enthusiastic and passionate about conserving reptiles and amphibians on military lands. We've been around for 10 years now, slowly growing our network throughout that time. We exist to support military readiness. We promote healthy landscapes for testing and training of the military. We provide a network for people to ask questions, to converse with each other, to share information. We produce science. We do a lot of important studies that are affecting reptiles and amphibians. We act towards preventing the federal listing, ESA, Endangered Species Act listing of endangered species. So we promote, we try to keep common species common. And so, it's that network of us all working together, sharing resources, sharing information, that is what the DoD PARC program is all about.
Rob, you want to explain to us the DoD PARC structure, how it's handled, your position, Chris's position, and kind of that role, those roles. Give us an idea what those roles are like.
Absolutely. With a little historical perspective, DoD PARC started out as Chris and I being approached by senior leadership in the military services to model after DoD Partners in Flight. So they're kind of our predecessor for a program that brings folks together in the military services. But the origins of it and the structure, Chris and I really didn't formally exist until we got the strategic plan done, which was one of the first things that they wanted accomplished.
I remember that.
On Chris and I was to develop a strategic plan that all the services and DoD's office could get behind. And until we had that signed off on by the Undersecretary of Defense at the time, that was in, 2015, that we were able to get that, then we were able to reach out and enhance our structure. So Chris and I were kind of carrying it at that time, but I will say that the private non-governmental organization, our colleagues at PARC, Partners in Amphibian and Reptile Conservation, they were there with us from the cradle, from the very beginning until it became a DoD-centric group, which was right before it was signed off on by the Undersecretary of Defense. So there's some procedural steps to that, but I think as in America, we certainly don't lack bureaucracy. So it had to become something formal that we could then develop structure. And now, since that time in 2015, and even before then, we were growing informally our regional representatives. And that's a group of folks who show leadership along the lines of who we are, our mission statement, and our strategic plan, and across the military services. And right now, what do we have now, Chris? 7? It fluctuates. Total reps, maybe 5, 7, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But then the 500 and change members that we have are folks that we can tap into and even outside our circles. So starts at the top. Chris and I have been able to grow it, but
Absolutely.
DoD kept us off the throttle there for a couple of years in the beginning.
Yep.
I think they're still trying to keep you off the throttle. Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, Rob serves as the national technical representative, and I serve as the national representative. So we complement each other that way.
And geographically, for those who don't know us, Chris is in Norfolk, Virginia, and I'm in San Diego, California. So it is a really nice model to book in the country with our network of folks individually and our expertise, and kind of close the gap on the 48 states.
How's our leadership look right now as far as representatives bookending the country? I know I'm up in Maine. I'm also a representative. And I know we're trying to reach out to all the services to get us representation from all the services as well as all different parts of the country. Can you guys speak to where our current reps are, aside from Maine?
Sure. We have representation in the Pacific Northwest. We have representation, of course, in the Southwest with Rob. You, of course, Ian, being in the Northwest, Northeast in Maine. We're good there. And then in the South, well, we sort of have representation in Georgia with our Marine Corps representative there. But it's less to me about where the people are located. For me, it's more about their skills, their passion, what they're interested in doing, what they can do for other network members, their leadership that they bring to the table, that they're willing to volunteer their time to help others with reptiles and amphibians, no matter what that may be. Maybe be, surveying for them, or conducting disease surveillance, or producing educational materials. It's what they bring to the table more so to me than where they actually sit and work.
Yeah, I fully agree. The people who are representatives have really kind of jumped out at us. They're enthused about DoD PARC. They like herps. We all like working in an industry that we went to school for. All of us, I believe, being patriots in the same. And so reptiles and amphibians are a cool group of organisms, and we've been very fortunate. We haven't had to look far to get folks who are interested, who will invest in the program.
Excellent. Now, over the past 10 years, we've developed a series of products available to natural resource managers, environmental folks, installations, military enlisted folks. What are some key products that you guys would like to highlight that let people know what's out there and available for their use in case they're unaware? And where can they go to find these things?
So all our products are on the DENIC site, which is available. Everybody can access it. All the products we produce, all the deliverables can be downloaded for free. We could provide that web address for you to post and
Absolutely.
Tell everybody about that. But I mean, we've produced dozens and dozens of products over the last 10 years, but there's a few that, in my mind, stand out as really define our group. And some of those are as follows. First, we developed an inventory of reptiles and amphibians on over 400 military installations, and this was a massive project. This took us about 4 to 5 years to complete. We started with the Navy, we moved on to the Marine Corps, we did the Air Force, we did the Army, and we were focused on those installations that had integrated natural resources management plans or INRAMs, because those are the installations that had significant natural resources that would support populations of reptiles and amphibians. So we would develop a list of potential species that could occur on that site, on a military site. Then we would look at their INRAMP and define what species were confirmed. We had those lists peer reviewed by the installation's biologists, and then either a state biologist or a local biologist, and we did that time and time again until we had species lists for over 400 military installations, and we were able to combine that data together, and we were able to write and publish a paper on the herpetofauna biodiversity on military installations. And one of the most significant findings of that was that 66% of all the native herps in the U.S. are confirmed present on military land. So I think that's really impressive.
Astonishing. Yeah.
So another important product that I think we've produced over the years is we want to educate the people on these military installations about the herps that are there, the reptiles and amphibians. So we've developed fact sheets over the years on these various species, and I think we've produced probably between 45 and 50, and it's a one-page fact sheet on a particular species that tells you all about it, how many military installations it's on. It tells you about their behavior, what habitat they're in. It just tells you everything that you need to know about that species. And so we've educated the folks that way, and they can download those fact sheets and hand them out. Another series of products that we produce is some training modules. We developed just a series of training modules that educate people on reptile and amphibian ecology, survey methodology, snake handling videos, snake safety videos. So we've done this whole series of training modules and videos that just are really good at educating folks about the reptiles and amphibians on their land. So the other products that we've done focus on disease surveillance. We've done there's a particular fungal disease that is impacting and has been impacting reptile amphibians for years, and it's causing huge, significant population declines. And this is the amphibian kidrid fungus. And we conducted several surveys where we would survey for this fungal disease on amphibians on military installations, and we've done that. This is like literally across the country, transcontinental surveys, and we've done 3. We've done one from Norfolk, Virginia to San Diego, California, sampling military installations along the way. We got that work published in 2013, and it was Do Frogs Get Their Kicks on Route 66? We followed that up with 3 north-south transects, one East Coast, one West Coast, one Central U.S., sampling for that kidrid fungus along those transects. And then we followed it up with a citizen science approach, if you will, where we sent installation biologists these kits to sample all the frogs and toads that they want to swab for that amphibian disease, and they were able to collect that information, send it back to us, and we could analyze that data. And then just recently we did a snake fungal disease survey where it's another disease that's impacting snakes. And so we used that same approach where we could buy the materials, send it to installation biologists. They could swab their snakes, send the data back to us, and then we could analyze it and then let them know if they have this disease. So disease surveillance is certainly another big part of what we've done.
Yeah, I
over the
took part
years.
in those projects, and they were a lot of fun.
Yes.
That's good stuff. Well, this is
Everything we do is awesome, and we have
That's
lots
true.
of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it all ties back to healthy landscapes to support military readiness.
Yeah.
To prevent the listing, the future listing of species.
One of the other products that I'd like to highlight is available to other natural resource managers and installation folks that are looking to do surveys on their property and to assist them with the contracting of that type of work so that we can have a consistent survey methodologies used by these installation managers to help inform us, and that's the scope of work template.
Yep.
And we've just come out with a revision. Is that revision available on Denex as well?
It will be by next week. It's gone through a public affairs review, which is standard for everything that
Yep.
we've produced, and it will be distributed to our group members next week, and they can use that. I mean, if this is a tool that's designed so, not every installation natural resources manager is an expert on reptiles and amphibians, so they may not have to, they may not know how to write a robust scope of work, and so we've done that for them. All they have to do is fill in some information about, what installation, the acreage, what kind of habitats they're looking for, and they can take this scope of work template, easily modify it, and have a robust scope of work that's standardized data collection across any installation that uses it, and they're good to go. So we've provided this tool to them. We know it's being used. We hope it's used in the future. And it's just a great way of, providing installation biologists a tool that they can use to help save them time and money.
And they don't have to reinvent the wheel.
No.
It saves them time because we know everybody's short for time.
Amen.
And we portray all these great products that Chris highlighted, but don't forget that there's a method to the madness, and sort of the strategic plan that we were asked to produce at the very beginning lays out an outline for how we grow as a program and the type of products that we produce. And then getting a list of amphibians and reptiles, the first project that Chris highlighted, that's really important, and I've always referred to it as an audit. You can't manage your funds in a bank account if you don't know how many dollars you have. You can't manage for the species that you have on your landscape of reptiles and amphibians until you have a complete assessment of them. And so that inventory has built a very powerful database that we can query now, and all the other projects neatly fall off of that, because then you have accurate information. The contracting piece that you mentioned, that's the infrastructure that supports the management of these species so that we maintain 66% or better of the species in America on our lands for the American people.
That's all good stuff. And that brings us to our second annual strategic planning meeting here at Camp Minden. It's been a pretty fun week.
It has been a great week.
It's been epic. Yeah, the guys are great hosts here.
Amazing.
Yeah, the Colonel, Chris.
Colonel Wilson.
Yeah, they've been great hosts.
Shout out to Tommy and Court, the wardens here.
Exactly. They've been showing us a great time and getting us on species and habitats just at will. They know the landscape really well.
Right. So our mission here, if you will, is twofold. It's to document the reptiles and amphibians on this installation because it's never had a formal reptile and amphibian survey. So that's part of what we're doing here.
Which is why we came here. Right,
exactly.
Chris?
Yeah. It's us being out in the field. Some of the best herpetologists in the military are here at this meeting, and we're going out and we're documenting species, and that's great because that information can be used to be put into their in-ramp, which supports military readiness. But the other part of it is for us to sit down, the leadership of DoD PARC, to discuss ongoing projects, to discuss future projects, discuss where we're taking the group in the future. So it's our strategic plan meeting. It's the only time we get together and sit down and look each other in the eyes and say, hey, what are we going to do? What are we going to work on next? And it's great.
Yep. And to be able to rotate also allows us that exposure to commands, installations, and military folks that we would not otherwise meet up with. Like last year, our first year was at Fort Indiantown Gap, and I don't have any projects up there. So it was great to get that perspective. And here again in Louisiana is a new base to Chris and I and all of us in attendance, except for the hosts.
Yeah, I mean, the biological data is great, but something else that I saw happen here from us just being here doing the surveys and holding our meeting is in having these people accompany us, especially the youth from the Youth Challenge program that they have here.
Put
Is
a shout out for them.
Yeah.
What a great program.
Yeah.
But anyways, with Tommy and Court, and then the YCP folks, just watching their attitudes change towards snakes in general with the education they received while out in the field with us.
You could see it in real time, Ian. It was
crazy.
It was
really
witness.
good.
Yeah.
The first couple opportunities, do you want to touch this? No, and it turned into now pursuing to touch, or hold a green snake,
Absolutely. Folks who would not otherwise go anywhere near a snake were now looking for them and getting much closer to them.
Yeah. And finding them out in the wild. They were
Yep.
out there pointing out snakes to us,
Yep.
which was great.
And even if you don't like snakes, it's part of the natural world. It's part of being alive to get out and see that creation.
Now they know more about them. They
Yeah.
know which snakes are dangerous, and they know which ones are not and actually beneficial to have around. And you take a community that would probably rather kill a snake than understand what kind of snake and what it does. To see a change to a healthy interest in that species, I thought that was a big takeaway for me from this meeting.
Yeah. When we were following the wardens yesterday at one of our sites, what was fun to me was watching him instead of me looking for snakes, because he had turned his image around so quickly, and he was literally leaning out the window looking for snakes along the whole drive. And I was more impressed with that, and I knew I wouldn't miss a snake because he didn't miss a snake.
Yeah, and I'll
he
tell you,
didn't need my eyes at that point. Yeah.
Court snake eyes.
Yeah.
He can pick out a cottonmouth from 100 yards.
Yep.
And
Unbelievable.
Yeah, we got 2 or 3 snakes on the road, or just off the road yesterday as a result.
So another shout out to the herpetologist here.
Yep.
First for Webster Parish.
Yes.
There you go.
Exactly. And so the plain-bellied king snake.
King snake,
And
yeah.
also the broad-headed skink.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah,
right. I
so
forgot
Or
about
the
Three.
plain-bellied water snake. And then we got the prairie king snake. But the prairie king snake, I think, was confirmed. The yellow-bellied water snake.
Okay.
Yeah.
And don't forget, we got 2 of the ones that don't count, the king snakes.
That's
Say
right.
that, yeah.
That's right. Yeah, so a couple
It's always
parish
a little
records here.
competition. in
Couple
herpetology.
parish records
It's healthy.
with observations made by Tommy earlier before we arrived, and what we listened to on the frog callers today. We're up to around 30 species in 2 days.
Yep. Not
Those are
bad.
30 confirmed species on an installation in about 16 hours of total effort.
And that's
Yep.
probably 25 of those in hand.
That's right.
The rest
Absolutely.
Photos from
With-
Tommy before, and I took
with
one
photo
picture
vouchers.
of the broad-headed skink. Yeah,
Mhm.
that I didn't catch.
So it's been a really good week so far, and thanks for pulling all this stuff together and allowing us to do this podcast. I think it's going to be a valuable tool to get information out there.
Yep.
This is going to be a lot of fun. I can feel it already. If this is podcast number 1, then let it be number 1.
It'll be a
Look
short
forward to
one. We'll
rolling.
probably have longer ones, but I think for now this is good.
Yeah, it
And,
might even be more animated.
Might even be more animated. Yeah.
It might.
Yeah.
We might
I
actually,
would count on that.
See, we're already talking over each other. Yeah,
Yeah.
there we
So,
go.
any concluding thoughts?
Just do the right thing for the world, reptiles and amphibians included.
Absolutely. You, Chris? Any?
I just want to say just how darn lucky I feel to be, here working with you guys and doing what we do, supporting military readiness, supporting herp diversity on military lands. It just seems like a gift. It's just
Couldn't have said it
so
any better
proud,
myself.
man. So proud to be here.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much.
Take care, everyone.
Well, all right, everyone. We did it, our first episode. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as we enjoyed making it. We'd like to give special thanks to all the staff down at Camp Minden, especially Colonel Harry Wilson Jr. and Officers Tommy McGee and Court Arrington. Your participation really made our trip, and we're extremely grateful. Thank you. For the rest of you, be sure to check out the show notes for links to all the information discussed during the podcast, as well as contact information for myself, Chris, or Rob. Feel free to make a comment on today's episode or request a future topic down in the comments section below, and stay tuned for future episodes of the DoD PARC podcast. Thanks for listening.